Métis lived off the land in this territory for generations, coming and going with the seasons and the migration of the great buffalo herds and other game, so basic to the provisional fur trade economy of the early days. Life was about family then and teamwork, knowing the land, the behavior of animals, to walk softly on the earth. Conservation ethic that survives to this day in the teachings of the old Métis. It was about life and living as an Aboriginal people.
It was a rough time to live a Métis life.
World War II veteran and hero Francis Godon, who's now in his 80s, remembers when his mom, dad, 3 brothers and 3 sisters were among many Métis searching for the land of opportunity. In the late summer of 1929, 5-year-old Francis and his family pulled up stakes in the Turtle Mountain region of North Dakota. They loaded up a wagon and headed north towards the Canadian side of Turtle Mountain and settled here in the rolling hills of southern Manitoba. Here is where Francis learned to hunt, trap, and fish. Here is where Francis learned the ways of the Métis.
My father taught me that, and he trained you that trapping. And like you work in the summertime, the different here and there, and then in the wintertime you trap and you hunt. If you were out trapping, he would show you what you should eat and how you should eat and what you should drink and how you should drink. He had a good way of explaining, a good way of doing it, because he was doing it himself.
But at the same time, Francis was taught how to protect and conserve so as not to over-trap, hunt, and fish.
You start trapping the 1st of November. That's the month you start. And you can go right up till the end of April. But that's not all for, with the minks are done in January.
During spring and summer months, Francis and his father would spend time working their own garden.
We have potatoes, rows after rows when we were young. Potato bugs. Okay, my turn for today, these potatoes. Oh boy, them potato bugs, like they seem to, you can clean them today and they're right back, So, yeah, there's all, but it was worth it, it was, we knew we were doing something. That was our food.
After the potato bugs were picked, there was no time for rest, for the Godons came to this territory during the height of the Depression. Francis's father offered labor and skills to the neighboring white farmers.
Wherever there's $1, he was there to make that dollar.
But the lessons didn't stop there. Besides working hard, Francis's father also preached discipline.
And when he says, well, okay, it's bedtime, 8 o'clock, you go to bed. You don't say, well, and then, no, you go to bed. He hardly used it, but he had a nice little willow on that door, on the door there, 2 nails. All you gotta do is look and point at that.
But discipline and hard work would not be enough. As a Métis growing up in a land filled with hatred and discrimination, recalling words like dirty little half-breed, Francis also had to learn to defend himself.
Train us to box, fight. He said that's the only way you have to get along in this world, because when he was young, that's how he had to do it, and he had to, and his dad showed him, so he turned around and he showed us.
Sometimes Francis and his brothers had to use their fists to do the talking, to stand up for their beliefs, to stand tall as proud Métis.
So hard to get along whether you're a Métis and you're a half-breed SOB, and I could tell you on and on what there was more fist fight and anything else, I didn't want to be used floor mat.
And the Métis formed a tight-knit community. The ties of kinship kept the family strong.
Have your lunch, they serve lunch, and then jiggy time. There's my dad up there. Come on, Stump. Call me Stump, that's the little man. Said, come on, Stump, let's show him how. So we get up there and we really cut her loose.
Soon, the sound of music would be replaced by the sound of war echoing around the world. Europe was in turmoil and voices were crying out for help to stop the German offensive. In different parts of the prairies, Francis and Victor were among thousands of Métis to sign up. Despite being barely 17 years old, Francis was determined to also join the cause.
If I could only prove to some of these people that I'm just as good as them or anybody, that I want to prove myself, and I thought I'd try. The Army would be about the best place.
3 times the Army rejected his application, first stating he was not welcome because he was born in the U.S., then he was flat-footed, that he had no education, or because he spoke broken English. His persistence paid off on his 4th attempt. He was allowed to register not as a Métis, but as a French-Canadian.
I didn't care what I would get into, as long as I got out with my one foot in the door, and I know I could prove myself that I'm just as good as the next soldier.
Francis's first tour of duty was not overseas action, though, but battling dirty dishes while on KP duty and a stubborn sergeant who refused to give him a chance. But again, persistence would pay off.
Well, I kind of asked the sergeant one time, the orderly sergeant, if I could go on parade. They were going to go on a 28 march with 90 pounds on. Oh, he said, you'll never last. Well, I told him, let me prove myself that I can do. Just give me a chance and I'll show you.
Francis overcame the challenge, and a couple of days later he was handed a Canadian Army uniform. Francis was trained as an anti-tank gunner in B Company, 3rd Division. In late spring 1944, the time for training had ended. It was time to take all they had learned and put it to the ultimate test. Francis would count on a lifetime of lessons taught to him by his father, standing tall for all you believe in as a Métis, knowing your roots and working hard. Francis would call upon his last words to his mother, "I'll return from war, I promise." All of this he would need and use as an infantryman and a prisoner of war, a Métis hunter born and raised, turned Canadian soldier. On June 6, 1944, Allied forces of British, American, and Canadians surged across the English Channel. When they hit the beaches of Normandy on D-Day, B Company faced the fiercest resistance.
There was a lot of mine, barbed wire, shells blowing all over, and machine gun. Some of our boys, some of our friends, right beside you, in front of you, yelling for help. You can't do anything.
During the height of action, one day blended into the next.
Been going all day, but all over, and you're still going and dodging and going, and then night comes.
As the Royal Winnipeg Rifles advanced inland, they were ordered to move towards Peton and Bassin. To keep track of the enemy, the Canadian squad formed a scout team. On the 4th day of action for the Royal Winnipeg Rifles came a crucial miscalculation. B Company was surrounded.
One of the platoon commanders that supported us with 4.2 mortars from the Camerons of Ottawa, he had a position in B Company area where he was old Pippin, wherever they needed fire, and he said he saw Phil surrender.
Colonel Fulton believes Phil Gower, Francis Godon, along with the rest of B Company, were marched toward German SS commander Wilhelm Mohnke. For merely repeating their name, rank, and serial number, 23 Canadian soldiers were mercilessly killed. For those who escaped execution, including Francis, it was the beginning of another nightmare as a prisoner of war.
I think we got prisoner on the 8th, taken prisoner on the 8th, June. And on the 8th or 9th of June, I forget what and we were on we got to where we marched from there till the 1st of July. And we got in the boxcars on 1st of July till the 28th. So just think how hot it was, right in July. And all the air we had is a little 6-inch hole, about 5 or 6 feet on each corner, one corner.
Between riding boxcars to marching, Francis would spend 11 months as a POW, making his way deep into German territory. From POW camps to concentration camps, 11 months would feel more like 11 years. Francis says survival was not easy. Sweltering, cramped conditions, slop for food, the beatings, the humiliation, the fear. To survive, Francis says his parents' lessons would prove invaluable.
Had my mom and my dad. That's yeah. Because I promised them, and I'm going home. Doesn't matter what. But I'm not going to show that I'm scared. I'm not going to show that I'm still going to be, but watch myself.
Little did Francis know, but the war was winding down. The Germans were weakening on all fronts. Francis estimates there were about a dozen Métis in his platoon, but that he'd be the only one to return home. Freedom came as the war was drawing to a close.
They moved us into a smaller camp, and way back, close to the Russian border. And you could hear guns coming from the east, guns coming from the south. You know, you could hear these anti-tanks, or you could hear artillery over here. So we know the Russians are closing in. And then one morning we were awake. We could hear them. We were awake when we looked out. The gates were open.
Francis weighed 212 pounds when he was taken a POW. He left weighing only 120. Though he was heading home, all was not well with Francis, for another battle awaited.
I wish they would have took us guys, put us in a convalescent 6 to a year or something. Give us, because when we come out of that, we're different. We're not the same anymore. We're half animal and we're half human.
He was never a drinker, but back on Canadian soil, Francis tried washing his troubles away with alcohol. For 21 years, he says he fought the Canadian government for medical assistance and a veteran's pension. Today, he has a full pension, but he credits his son for saving him.
It wasn't for him, I wouldn't be here. So, I gotta thank him for it. He was the one that smartened me up.
Francis has returned to the land. He's returned to his Métis ways, fishing and trapping. In 2003, Francis returned to the land he helped liberate.
I saw heaven, not hell, when we went in. There was nobody after us when we went in. They were all, where are you? And so I seen what we had done, appreciate. And the beach, there's people in there, kids there, everybody on the beach, and the houses and motels and cafes, just beautiful. And that kind of took a new life.
As an aging Métis veteran, Francis returned to those same beaches that were once stained with the blood of his fallen comrades who peppered the landscape. He shares with fellow Métis veteran Charlie Fosnew as his feelings pour from his heart as he scours the hundreds upon hundreds of names. The anger, the fear, the frustration, the knowing. Friends, comrades, soldiers.
That's where you guys came in.
Francis visits with a Frenchman whose mother had recounted the story of the night B Company was captured near Pétain-en-Bessin and led away as POWs. To survive is the true measure of a Metis man.
I'm proud to be a Métis, and I'm happy to be a Métis. And I'll keep that. So I don't want anybody to be ashamed because he's a Métis. Just stand up there. Keep salute that you are just as good as anybody else. And don't ever back down and don't ever take a back seat because you're just as good as any.